When people talk about classic American trucks, the conversation usually jumps straight to full-size pickups or muscle-era performance icons. The early Ford Bronco often gets mentioned too, but almost as a novelty, cute, boxy, retro. And that's a shame, because the 1969 Ford Bronco is far more than a nostalgic off-road toy. It's one of the clearest examples of Ford quietly inventing a segment before the market even knew it needed one. In many ways, this truck predicted the modern SUV decades before the term became fashionable. To understand the 1969 Bronco, you have to step back into the mid to late 1960s. The American auto industry was booming, but it was also becoming more specialized. Muscle cars were peaking, personal luxury coupes were growing longer and wider, and at the opposite end of the spectrum, compact imports like the Toyota Land Cruiser and the Jeep CJ were proving there was a market for smaller, tougher, go-anywhere vehicles. Ford watched Jeep dominate that niche and decided not to copy it outright, but reinterpret it. The result was the Bronco, introduced in 1966 as a purpose-built off-road vehicle that still felt distinctly Ford. By 1969, the Bronco had matured. The basic formula hadn't changed: body-on-frame construction, solid axles front and rear, short wheelbase. But the refinement was better, the options list was longer, and the identity was clearer. This was no longer an experiment. It was a confident product aimed at ranchers, outdoor enthusiasts, utility companies, and quietly, suburban buyers who wanted something tougher looking than a station wagon. Visually, the 1969 Bronco is all about honesty. The design doesn't pretend to be aerodynamic or elegant. It's upright, square, and unapologetically functional. The front end is dominated by a simple rectangular grille with horizontal bars and round sealed beam headlights pushed to the corners. The hood is flat and broad, giving the driver a clear sense of where the vehicle ends, an underrated trait when you're crawling over rough terrain. The fenders are slab-sided and nearly vertical, emphasizing durability over style, yet there's a kind of timeless proportion here that modern retro designs still chase. One of the Bronco's most charming design features is its modular body configuration. In 1969, buyers could choose a wagon, a half-cab pickup, or a roadster, though by this point the roadster was already fading from popularity. The removable steel roof on the wagon version transformed it from a closed utility vehicle into an open-air truck long before that became a lifestyle marketing phrase. The short overhangs, high ride height, and exposed steel bumpers all signal capability without shouting about it. Compared to earlier Broncos from 1966 or 1967, the 1969 model benefits from small but meaningful refinements. Suspension tuning was improved, noise isolation was slightly better, and Ford had learned how customers were actually using these trucks. Compared to later Broncos, especially the larger second-generation models introduced in 1978, the 69 feels almost minimalist. Later Broncos grew longer, wider, and more comfortable, becoming closer to full-size SUVs. The 1969 remains compact, purposeful, and mechanically simple. Against rivals like the Jeep CJ5 or International Harvester Scout, the Bronco sits right in the middle, more refined than a Jeep, less plush than a Scout, but arguably better balanced than both. Inside, the 1969 Bronco is exactly what you'd expect from a utility vehicle of this era, and that's not an insult. The cabin is dominated by painted steel surfaces, flat panels, and simple geometry. The dashboard is upright and functional, with a straightforward gauge cluster and minimal ornamentation. Controls are large, clearly labeled, and designed to be used with gloves on. Vinyl bench seats were standard, durable and easy to clean, though not particularly supportive by modern standards. Comfort was not the primary goal, but Ford did offer incremental upgrades. Optional bucket seats, improved heaters, and basic radio units made the Bronco more livable for daily use. Compared to its competitors, the Bronco's interior feels slightly more automotive and less agricultural. There's an effort at ergonomics here, even if luxury is clearly off the table. It's a place you tolerate rather than indulge in, but it grows on you, especially if you appreciate mechanical honesty. Under the hood is where the 1969 Bronco really starts to earn respect. Early Broncos debuted with a 170 cubic inch inline-six, but by 1969, the engine lineup had improved. The base engine was typically the 200 cubic inch inline-six, producing around 105 horsepower. On paper, that sounds anemic, but torque delivery was smooth and usable, especially off-road. More importantly, buyers could opt for the 302 cubic inch V8, which transformed the Bronco's character entirely. With roughly 205 horsepower and significantly more torque, the V8 Bronco felt genuinely quick for its time and remarkably capable in sand, mud, and snow. Transmission options included a 3-speed manual as standard, with a 3-speed automatic available. Most purists prefer the manual for its simplicity and control, but the automatic made the Bronco more accessible to casual drivers. The 4-wheel drive system was part-time, manually engaged, and paired with a Dana transfer case and solid axles that have since become legendary for durability. Driving a 1969 Bronco today, you immediately notice the heavy steering, the deliberate inputs, and the sense that everything is happening mechanically, not electronically. It's tiring on long highway drives but deeply satisfying on secondary roads or trails. Real-world opinions on the 1969 Bronco are remarkably consistent. Owners praise its toughness, simplicity, and timeless design. Critics point out its crude ride quality, limited interior space, and lack of safety features, which is fair. This is not a classic you buy to cruise effortlessly at 75 miles per hour. It's a vehicle you engage with, physically and mentally. Market value has climbed dramatically over the past decade. What was once a relatively affordable classic truck is now a serious collector item, especially original or tastefully restored examples. Prices vary wildly depending on originality, engine choice, and restoration quality, but the trend is unmistakably upward. Part of that is nostalgia, but part of it is recognition. The early Bronco is no longer underrated, it's finally understood. So is the 1969 Ford Bronco a good buy today? That depends on what you're looking for. If you want comfort, efficiency, or modern safety, absolutely not. But if you want a mechanically honest, historically important vehicle that still delivers genuine character and capability, it's hard to think of a better choice. The '69 Bronco represents a moment when Ford built something not because market research demanded it, but because it made sense. And that, more than anything, is why it still matters.